I'm Nadav Shemel for Mining Journal's Digging for Climate Change, and with me is Daria Grigoreva, Director for Sustainable Development at Polyus, Russia's largest and the world's fourth largest gold miner. On August 16, Polyus unveiled its climate strategy, an action plan to help it reach its midterm goal of reaching Scope 1 and 2 emissions by up to 40 to 50% by 2032 compared to 2020 levels, and achieve net zero Scope 1 and 2 by 2050. Daria, for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet, what does the strategy entail, and what is your level of confidence of achieving the targets set out in the strategy?
Yes, hello to everyone. Thank you for inviting for this discussion. Well, you know that Polyus, that operates 5 gold mines in Eastern Russia, has been reducing its specific greenhouse emissions for several years already, so we are on the way. We have successfully tackled the issue of indirect emissions by switching to grid connectivity from hydropower, so the renewables, and compensating for the rest by purchasing green direct certificates. Thus, in last year, 2021, 100 of our electricity consumption was from renewables. And so last year, together with other mining companies, Polyus joined a collective commitment to reach Scope 1 and 2 net zero by 2050, as you said. So we felt that a more comprehensive approach was needed for us to meet this target, and this led us to design the Polyus First Climate Strategy. And it includes as the goals, so also the directions which we will follow to implement the first climate strategy that Polyus published.
And are you able to provide some of the highlights that are included in this strategy, what it entails?
Yes, you have already mentioned the 2050 net zero target, but we also set a midterm target of reducing Scope 1 and 2 specific emissions to 40–50% in 2032, rebased to the level of 2020. And while it might seem not a very ambitious target, as Polyus overall carbon intensity reduced by 68% during only the last 4 years, but here, I just want to remind that we plan the commissioning of Sukhoi in 2027. It's one of the world's largest greenfield gold projects, and it puts some limitations on our ability to reduce emissions more dramatically in the midterm. So our climate strategy is not only about our 5 operating mines, but we also include the greenfield Sukhoi and our plan of GHG emissions reduction.
Also, you mentioned that you've already been reducing emission through hydropower and
yes.
And offsets. Are there any other actions, major actions entailed in that strategy that you would want to mention?
These 2 are the main, as we, as I said, have 100% of energy consumption from renewables. That's a lot. But we do also understand that there is a lot of challenges to overcome, like on our ways to further reduction of direct emissions, for example, as the biggest challenge for us will be to decarbonize the heat supply and the vehicle fleet, as Polyus operates in severe climate conditions where heating is vital. But we are already elaborating the energy efficiency program for each of our business units, and we are planning to boost energy efficiency through loss reduction and use of low carbon, such as gas, and carbon-free innovation materials for heating and energy generation. Well, and the second story is about the decarbonizing the vehicle fleet, and while a number of low carbon solutions are possible here, such as shifting to liquefied or synthetic natural gas, and then to hydrogen engines and electric and fuel cell vehicles. And all of that we are discussing and analyzing internally with different departments.
And some of our viewers are undoubtedly in the middle of putting together climate strategies for other mining companies. So as a large mining company, are you able to provide insights into the work that went into putting together your strategy, the Polyus strategy? And for example, what were the processes and methodologies, and what did it require in terms of your own internal resources?
I would say that all functional departments were involved. So we organized the special working group on climate strategy development. And this was meant to guarantee their input and future involvement in the climate strategy implementation and the same understanding of climate strategy. I'm really thankful for my colleagues from different departments for their input and participation, because there are really people from strategy department, legal, environment, operations, logistic, and so on, so forth, risk department. And while also all climate-related issues in Polyus, they are supervised by the board. Thus, the climate strategy that we have published recently, it was agreed and confirmed by the board. So all functional departments, the top manager and the board were deeply involved in the climate strategy formulation, so to say.
We've spoken previously about the work you completed on climate risk assessment based on things like the GHG protocol in 2021. I think you've been working on this for at least a couple of years. So how did you integrate the findings from these risk assessments into the climate strategy that was put out in August?
Yes, you're right. We made a comprehensive climate risk assessment for all our business units and the Polyus group as a whole in accordance with TCFD recommendations. And the assessment was made for 3 time horizons. And we used 3 possible scenarios following the CCP's shared socioeconomic pathways. The first one was the CCP1. That's the scenario targeted by the Paris Agreement, though there are a lot of discussion around that scenario that we as a mankind wouldn't be able to meet it, but we used still this scenario in our climate risk assessment. The second one is an intermediate scenario, so it's CCP2, and the severe physical risk scenario that was CCP5. And so we identified and assessed 15 physical risk factors relevant for our operations that may lead either to business interruption or reduced efficiency and higher resource intensity of production. So the greatest risk factors that could have the greatest potential impact for us, physical risk factors, are change in the number of days with extremely strong winds, change in warm season precipitation, and change in the number of days with extremely low temperature. However, none of the risk factors currently has a critical impact, so none of them are in the red zone. Maybe that's because of our favorable location of our assets, because none of our mining facilities are located on permafrost, which is the major climate risk for many miners working in the same climate conditions. And we also accept physical risks, identifying transition risks that can be related to changing policy, legislation, practices, and technology, as well as market reaction and reputation aspects. And so we will look in 2 time horizons for those risks and find that the additional expenses driven by decarbonization trends, especially due to higher electricity prices, is a key transition risk factor for Polyus. And so that this could drive up the prices of fossil fuel and energy. And so then we have a corporate risk management system. And so we include climate risk assessment, the results of it, into our corporate risk assessment system. And our climate change risk is one of the corporate risks that we monitor and control. And also climate strategy is a part of corporate strategy, so it is not stepping aside, because it influence the operation strategy, and that's how we are going to deal with our also greenfield projects further. So it's included as into risk system, so in the corporate strategy also.
Daria Grigoreva from Polyus, thank you for your time.
Thank you.